social forces or multicultural marketing is looking at different cultures inside of America. And if you look at like America, African Americans, Hispanics, Asian Americans, and immigrants make up nearly 1/3 or 1 in 3 of all Americans nowadays. But the more important thing to think about is don't design your target market around demographics as much as possible. You really want to try to focus on the buying process. And then the next step, of course, is interest. If you can focus on those two things instead of demographics, it allows you to avoid making generalizations that leave specific people out of your potential customers. If you can focus on interests, you can reach people across multiple demographics, and you don't have to focus as much on multicultural marketing as you can just focusing on the interests that appeal to the specific group of customers. Culture is a person's personality or a country's personality. If you think about what a culture really is, the core of a culture is made of a few different things. Obviously, if you look at things like history have a huge play in how culture is developed. The next step is language. Languages very powerful effect in how cultures form and how they actually act around different people. If you compare the English language to, say, an Asian language, the English language allows people inside of its culture to become very almost equals or flat, where an Asian language oftentimes has very hierarchical, very top down. And just to give you an example, is people are not allowed to speak freely to people who are older than them. And because of this, it really has a huge effect on the culture. Then you add in food. Food is usually based on the location, the types of foods that they can grow. Due to their second one, the geography, which has a huge effect as well. If you were to compare the culture of Alaska versus Florida or Alaska versus Thailand, the culture will be very different simply based on the geography that the country. Economy refers to the income and resources that affect running a business or household. So two key quick vocab: inflation. Inflation is when things become more expensive. I'll give you an example. Like you could say that rice in 1990 cost $1 a pound, and in 2020 that same pound of rice costs $3. That's an example of inflation. A recession is what we had around 2008 and 9, when the economy was actually shrinking. It's going down, it's becoming negative. Consumer income, gross income, is amount made in 1 year. Disposable income is amount left after taxes. But here, as a marketer, is the income you really want to focus on. Discretionary income, the amount left after taxes and necessities. Think about fashion and your car, like the accessories on your car and things around your house, your furniture, eating out at restaurants. 95% of your technology is all based on discretionary income. This is the area that you really want to focus on as a marketer, and understand how much discretionary income your consumers have and how they spend it or how they divvy it up among their different interests, and then you can really focus on that area. Technology, the market space, electronic exchange marketplace, basically is e-commerce, right? Which goes down to, if you think of Amazon or shopping online, which all of us do every day probably now, it's just kind of become commonplace and something that's very, simple to understand in today's environment, compared to just say even 5 to 7 years ago was much more limited than it is today.